Hello all, hope you're doing well. So I'm on my travels at the moment and I'm in London, and every time I come here I think it's worth doing a quick dispatch to see what's going on in the capital of Britain, if you can call it part of Britain. Now London is really many things, it's many different cities in one. I remember years and years ago reading a book called Brick Lane by an author called Monica Ali. She's a Muslim, I think Bangladeshi. Anyway, the point is, in the book, she sort of makes the point that the Bangladeshi immigrants view central London as like another country. Her words, not mine, before the powers that be accuse me of doing a racism. And you get what she means when you go to certain parts of London, like Whitechapel, for instance. The ironically named Whitechapel, because it's not very white, it's very Bangladeshi. And it is like a different country. And it's right next door to the city area of London, so where all the skyscrapers are. It's very bizarre. But London is like that when you get out of Zone 1. You can see there are certain areas that just don't look anything like, let alone Britain, Europe. Whereas the centre itself is like a different country to all of that. It's like an island. Well, you should say if London is an island within Britain, Zone 1 of London is an island within London itself. And Zone 1 is the posh bit for any international viewers. It's the bit right in the middle with all of the sights. And it is impressive. It's very visually impressive. And if you're rich, you can have a high standard of living there, no doubt about it. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to see. If you're not rich, you're just not going to really go there unless you're coming in and out to go to work. But the truth is, it's not really England, Zone 1. It's not really London either, for the most part. I've always felt Zone 1 is something of a theme park. There are lots of wonderful things to see, ancient buildings from Britain's history and so on. But as I've said before, if you go in them, you'll find there's not that much that's British about them. They belong to the globalist liberal world now, really. And you'll see that everywhere. You know, you've got some wonderful old building that's played a key part in British history, and you'll go inside, it'll be the same tolerance and diversity within that. Anyway, it's extraordinarily busy at this time of year in London, obviously in the run-up to Christmas. And, you know, they always put on a good show. But to me, I think, you know, London is a city for young people. I quite enjoyed it when I was young, but I think as you get older, you realise this place is, it's too busy, it's too noisy, it'll drive you mad, you know, and I think you can see why people dull themselves with so much alcohol there, because there's constant noise, constant lights, so many conversations constantly going on around you. But when I am here, I do try and find the quiet spaces, and there are a few. Went to Westminster Cathedral, that's a Catholic church, went for a service there on Saturday night, which was lovely. Westminster Cathedral is a gem. It's built in this sort of Byzantine style, but it really is a magnificent cathedral, well worth a visit if you're ever in London. And lots of Americans actually reach out to me and say, oh, you know, should I go to London? I always wanted to go. I would say yes. There's still lots of gems around. There's plenty to see and do. It's fine for a break in Zone 1. But you will start to see that you're having something of a sanitised experience, and there really aren't that many English people there. But if you're all right with that, then there's still plenty to see. But it's somewhere to live. Again, you're not really in Britain in Zone 1. You're in the world of the elite and their servant class. And this is what Zone 1 in London really is all about. It's the neoliberal project in full swing. It's supposedly the crown on the head of the neoliberal project. But like I say, really, Zone 1 is only for the elite class. That lady on Question Time who was saying, who's going to serve us our coffees in Pret, you know, if we limit immigration? And that's their mentality. You know, they don't see the irony of that, of course, because they just see them as their service class. And people like that really do exist. As I say, they will come in and out, maybe from the home counties, or if they're rich enough, they'll live in the centre. And in a sense, you know, I do actually feel a bit sorry for the servant class. I'm not the best bigot in the world. I mean, I don't want, you know, all of the hordes here. But on a human level, I do feel sorry for them just here to serve these people, who, by the way, aren't really British either. They're the international elite they serve, which is a very important distinction to make. You know, London is in Zone 1, serves the international elite. And you see that when you're on the ground, you know. Even with that international elite, different accents are being spoken, different languages and so on. Now, whenever I'm in a city or somewhere new, I try and do this spiritual practice I learned a long time ago. And really the idea, it sounds a bit weird, but you almost conceptualize yourself as not having a head. And the idea is you're not thinking, you're just flowing through the world, accepting what is without judgment. It's quite popular in non-dual circles. Anyway, point is, I was trying this yesterday as I was walking around, just to try and drink London in and feel its energy and what it's really saying. And again, it's schizophrenic in a way, London, because there's so much going on. As I say, I sort of see why people have to be busy and dull themselves, because it would sort of drive you mad if you try and drink it in some senses. It's a place of transience. There's no roots there, really, which is ironic, given it's our ancient capital, or was our ancient capital. But I went into this Turkish barber's. I've been there before. Again, not a very good bigot. I'm sure I'll lose a few brownie points with the hardcore faithful for doing that. No pun intended, of course. But they do a good haircut, and they do that chop thing on your arms, I quite enjoy that. I like those masculine cultures, I've got to be honest, like the Eastern Europeans and the Turks. They've got that masculinity about them, like unashamed, which I kind of like. But then there's this, they give you a hot towel as well, so there's that blend, if you like, of that kind of very masculine culture, but at the same time, kind of pampering. It's kind of a weird mix. The first time I went there, I had to sort of Louis Theroux it, as they say in Peep Show, just pretend you're Louis Theroux here for research. And then I went home and thought that was a bit full on, because they start whacking your back and all sorts. But then as soon as I made sure it wasn't gay or anything like that, I thought, actually, I don't mind this, it's all right. So when I'm in London, I often go back there. And also, I've always been fine with small levels of migration. If people are actually doing something useful, I'm all right with it. It's the mass immigration that replaces the population I don't like, that comes with all the leftist ideology, subversive ideology, and really just serves the markets. That's where I draw the line. But anyway, one thing I noticed in this barber's was there was this lad waiting for his dad to finish having his hair cut. And I thought, God, he's a symbol of the state of young Western men. He was slouched over two chairs, got this YSL, is that Yves Saint Laurent, I think, puffer jacket on, And then when I came in and another bloke came in, he got up and walked into us both by accident, just completely dull to the world, didn't apologise. Headphones on, had some lollipop thing he was eating as well, chewing on, and playing some game on his phone. The kids, they flip their phone over and add these things to it and all that sort of thing. But I was thinking, dear Lord, what are we creating? Look at the state of this kid. I mean, he was just swamped in media. Headphones on, completely plugged in all of these games and sweets and whatever his dad could give him to dull him from the world. Probably so, he doesn't have to deal with him, number one. But I thought this is just so typical, not just of youngsters, but so many of us in the West. We cannot bear the idea of not being occupied. And that's deeply spiritually damaging. I mentioned it before. I was waiting at a train station once, just enjoying, the peace and quiet. And this lad came by, probably about, 21 or something. And he was one of these kids that's, aping the blacks, wiggers, I think they call them. And, he's doing that, cool guy walk, that. And he had his trousers around his not his ankles, but, they had their ass hanging out, basically. They think it's cool. But they look ridiculous. But anyway, you could see he couldn't bear the silence, this kid. And he just started playing music on his phone to drown out the silence, to drown out the reality of life, the true depth of life. It has to be replaced. And there's something that I think that really speaks to the soul, if you like, of so many of us in the West at the moment. We cannot bear to feel, to see the world, to drink it in deeply, to be at one with it, to recognize our true nature. We're completely locked into the digital. It's not even really the digital, it's just the material, it's noise. Anything to stop us being still and going into the source of life, the source of reality, and facing what we are ultimately. Even boredom we're frightened of, But I was looking at this kid thinking, dear Lord, what is your father? What sort of lad is he raising, And then, God knows where they go after that, probably to have sweets and all this sort of stuff. But the point is, I sort of feel that more and more when I'm in London. As I say, it's a theme park, Zone 1. And everybody's in that theme park mentality. I must constantly be occupied with pleasure. But we don't realise that when you do that to yourself, you're going to get more and more sad. You're going to get more and more spiritually desolate. part of life. A life lived well is being at one with your surroundings. But again, London is there, or at least if you can afford it, it's there to try and keep you occupied at all times. But again, I don't want to be too OTT about London. There are nice sides to it. It's always nice to see the lights, but it's too busy. It's far too busy. And more than a couple of occasions when I was walking down the road with a backpack on, I noticed, what would you say, a few rap music aficionados very, very close behind me. I could feel them on my backpack, and I thought, well, I'd probably get in trouble for doing a racism, but I thought I'm going to carry my backpack because they're pushing too close against it. And I stay aware to these sorts of things. The other thing that bugs me about the streets when you're walking around is these tuk-tuks. I don't know if you've seen them, but the migrant class have come in and they play awful music from these tuk-tuks that they cycle around on. I never see anybody in them. So they're driving around on these things and they are just ear poison. They are poison to the surroundings. The most awful, cheesy music you can imagine, just pumping out at ungodly volumes. But again, it's the theme park thing. But I've often thought these people, like the people who sell peanuts on the bridges, they're not making any money doing that. You can't afford to live in London doing that. Even if there's 10 of them in a house, you're not going to make enough. So they're clearly selling something on the side, probably drugs. Another thing you notice there is a very sexualized place. I always notice when you go there, the chickie poos make some eyes at you on the tube. You see them doing it to other men as well, and the men stare back. Men are very ogly, I find, there as well. I find it with my wife when we're walking around. A lot of blokes will ogle at her, and you don't really get that in other towns and cities. I mean, you probably will get it in other major cities, but we've been around the country a lot, and definitely London's a lot worse. That might be because there's lots of foreign men, and they tend to be a bit more ogly. But I also think it's just the mentality of individualism down there. I personally don't blame men for glancing at a woman. I can't blame them for glancing at my wife. It's part of the male nature. Where I'd personally draw the line is ogling. I think that's where it goes a bit far. But it happens so much in London. What are you going to do? Fight them all? It gets a bit ridiculous. But the reason I'm saying this is, again, I think it's part of the spiritual energy. It's this, again, pleasure seeking constantly, opportunity constantly, money, women, pleasure, booze, drugs. It's all that mentality there. And if you walk by a tube station at anywhere in central London at about 7 p.m, especially at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because I used to do it, you'll see armies of men waiting for their date to turn up. It's ridiculous, and it's just the lifestyle down there. But anyway, again, I think it's just if you're in zone one and you can afford it, that's just the mentality. It's, that hook up, have fun, all that sort of thing. And that's the meaning of life. Of course, then the women reach 35 and are on their own, and all they've got is the corporate job. And then they have burnout at 40 and adopt the spiritual life then. Of course, it's really a bit of a counterfeit spiritual life. And the men, well, they just keep going, really, until they drop or till they wake up. And, well, there's too many of them that just aren't waking up. And I think that's part of the plan, really, because the party goes on in central London. We have to remember, this is what the whole neoliberal project is really for. It's the crown on the top of modern Britain is supposedly London. And you can kind of see it's being held together by just armies of this servant class. There are no British there anymore because they've all moved out. And it's all basically so Piers Morgan can enjoy his curry. And what's her name? Deborah Meaden, that awful woman from Dragon's Den. She was banging on the other about how wonderful diversity is. But, I don't know where she lives, but I'd assume she's probably got, an £8 million townhouse in Chelsea and, a getaway in the Cotswolds, as well as a house in the French Riviera. But the point I'm making here is the centre of London gets smaller and smaller and more international and more an island with every passing year. And again, we can all be cynical about London. There's much to be cynical about it. But as I say, there is a magic side to London still, if you can afford it, which is very, very few people, And as I say, that's why the international rich come here. And I've said before, if you go around Mayfair these days, it's very Arab. The shops are Arab. It's in the Arabic language. The signs are what they call, not the full burqa, but the head one. Is it the niqab? I've got that the wrong way around. Maybe the burqa's the head one. Lots of women wearing that, and the coffee shops and the ice cream shops open late for the Muslims. So you can see it's just really this international playground, rootless, and eventually I think it's just going to be driven into the ground over the next 10 to 20 years. Obviously, they're going to maximise what they can get from it. But then, of course, the globalist energy will move to somewhere new. Although London may always be an island because they have financial services there, which again serves the world's, money flows, not all of it legitimate money flow. So I think in some senses, London will always have that protection, especially Zone 1. It's not just the British government, it's way bigger than that. It's the whole Liberal regime will protect London, or at least the City of London. If you don't know what that means, you're international. The City of London is where the financial flows are. So I think that will always be protected, and probably I think it will be protected with increasing actual security forces as well, and probably roadblocks soon too, I imagine, down the line, because they're not going to want the riffraff going in as London declines. And as I say, around London you're seeing the balkanisation already. Leave Zone 1. There are bits of West London which is still quite posh, but other than that, I mean, really, it's just different areas are basically like Hindu area, Muslim area, that sort of thing. And or people just, transient folks who are here for 10 years to do some work and some money and leave. So yeah, again, it's another world. You're not in England when you're in London. And again, there are parts of it which just break your heart. I went to meet a friend in St Pancras Station, and St Pancras Station is just an absolute gem. It's beautiful. I highly recommend a visit there if anybody's passing through. It's just a gem of Victorian London. It really is beautiful, old rail station, just well worth a walk around. But again, you see these things and, you do think, look, what this spoke to just isn't here anymore. But it's wonderful, it's still there. But even when you're walking in and around it, there is just an endless stench of cannabis wherever you go in London. I don't want to get all Pete's Hitchens, but it is ridiculous. Everywhere you go, it stinks. People just smoke it in front of the police, And again, it's just this offence on the senses that has become so typical of London, but also modern life. People just blaring out music from those tuk-tuks, the cloud of cannabis. There's no consideration, for others. So whatever London is, and it is many things, it's not England. And I think that's why the media class, they love it so much. I think George Orwell spoke a lot about the liberal intelligentsia have always seen, I think he called it Anglophobia. They've always seen England as a negative, embarrassing thing. You have to welcome the cosmopolitan. And well, modern London has done that. And it's certainly not England. It belongs to the globalist liberal power structure now, really, and belongs more to the world. As I say, you don't see many English people there, and the ones that you do see, they're almost just there really to come in and do some work. So again, it's always interesting to come here because you're essentially coming into another world. It'll be very interesting to see what happens to London as things start to corrode more and more. As I say, I think the key centres will maintain their character because there's so much globalist power here. But everything around it is just going to get more and more chaotic, anarchic and violent. The true hope, friends, as always, is in the Shire. Anyway, there's some thoughts from me. A bit of a Wondering Sunday video today. Hope you're all doing well, and do join the Substack for the call on Saturday, last one of the year, and the big plans for 2026. Sister channels link below as well. And do subscribe to the channel if you're new. Take care all.